Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
Those who are not history majors, do you know where the first battle of the Cold War occurred? You're right, Trieste, Italy. It's at the boot, northern boot, right at the ankle of Italy, where Trieste lies. And many historians have claimed that Berlin was a major first battle of the Cold War. And my thesis disputes that. And I'm going to defend it by explaining in just a minute my thesis. Right now I'm going to say the in Trieste, the first battle of the Cold War, is my title of the thesis. And many historians of the Germans had led people to believe that Berlin was the very first battle. Trieste and the rest of the Italian peninsula during World War II was neglected, meaning that all the focus was up in the European continent, not down there by southern France and Italy. Examining the importance of Trieste was established during 3000 BCE to 2000 BCE, and it lies on the border of Yugoslavia, which is now Slovenia, and Italy, and it's still in Italy. At the end of World War I, Treaty of Versailles ceded in Trieste into Italy because Austria-Hungary used to own it in Trieste and when they fell during World War I, Italy got to cede it. Most importantly, the rail lines that started at the seaport of Trieste led all the way up to Austria. And that allows the Allies after World War II to import supplies from Trieste, from the Mediterranean Sea, all the way up to Austria. It was faster, cheaper, and less time than it took from northern Germany all the way down to Austria by about 6 hours. As the tension and sphere of influence of troops converged into Trieste, causing border disputes between democratic and communist governments, the port city became a geopolitical hotspot of the first battle of the Cold War. I'm going to talk about 3 points: the importance of Trieste, military presence and peacekeepers, and a treaty of peace with Italy, claimed by the United Nations Treaty. And one of the major key players is Field Marshal Alexander. He was a British 8th Army commander under the 15th Army Group, and the 15th Army Group was the United States military command of the Italian peninsula. And he really wanted to build a naval base before the Yugoslavians got there. But the Yugoslavians followed his plan because they had already reached Trieste in Montfalcone. So they had to start negotiations because there was tension between Italy and Yugoslavian military and governments. one of the major key players and also was a guerrilla leader and became the president of Yugoslavia during the time after World War II ended was Marshal Tito. His real name is Marshal Joseph Broz Tito. And he gave orders to his military stating, anything that you liberate, we are taking over as part of our country. And in this map you can see Yugoslavians advanced all the way up to Trieste, which is here. And then the 15th Armored Group, including the 5th and British 8th Army, advanced into Trieste. And here's the two conflicting battles, not battles, but a political battle that occurred. And the head of the British government, that includes Prime Minister Churchill, and President Truman told the Allies troops not to allow Trieste to escape out of the Italian government. So they had to negotiate and had to keep peace, and they had to stay there until peace was relinquished.
At the peace conference in Paris, Italy pleads against the claim of Yugoslavia for Italian territory. Italian Prime Minister De Gasperi goes to the rostrum and defends his country's right to retain the great port of Trieste. Yugoslavia is supported by Russia, and meanwhile Yugoslav Marshal Tito has been to Moscow for discussions with the heads of the Soviet government. There he was greeted by Foreign Minister Molotov, who was soon to depart for the peace conference in Paris. Molotov, directing Soviet foreign policy, works closely with Tito, head of the government of Yugoslavia. In the disputed territory, Italians parade. This is in the town of Gorizia, which, like the seaport of Trieste, is a focus of disturbance. Italians clash with pro-Yugoslavs. Who shall get this area? Italy wants to keep it. Marshal Tito's Yugoslavia demands it. There's bitter dissensions and rioting. Italian police use rough tactics to disperse the mobs, and in the melee, a bomb is thrown. An American newspaper captain.
Sorry. I was going to explain about that one sign that showed the 349th Infantry Regiment that was part of the 88th Infantry Division. But I kind of cut the video short. Apologize. They were there before the treaty was signed, and the treaty forced them out. So I'll explain that in a few minutes. But that video shows the clash that the Yugoslavians and Italians were basically fighting amongst each other for the city. They weren't, and the Yugoslavians weren't inside of Trieste in Yugoslavia, but the Italians were basically saying no. And here you can see Trieste was the next global crisis. And here I'm going to explain in the next clip that the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, was ordered by the president to determine what the importance of Yugoslavia was about. And they found, and by doing research, that 340 million tons of iron ore was being mined out of Yugoslavia. And it was also being sent to Trieste because it has a major industrialization that they smelted the iron ore into steel that built ships, repaired ships, made buildings, I-beams for buildings, anything that they could make as iron ore into steel, they made at the factories. And there was many other factories that were there, like oil refinery and seed oil from like olive oil and things like that that was being shipped there, and they manufactured it. They had to take control of the situation in Trieste's imports. They had to beat the Yugoslavians into Trieste. The importance of Trieste was the iron ore, the coal, smelting iron, and the ore, shipbuilding, ship repairs, port services, and the Americans and the British sent in military presence to keep peace, like I reported about that one video. The 2nd New Zealand Division was sent into Trieste. They were part of the British 8th Army. And that was during late April, early May. The 91st Infantry Division was sent in May 1945 to August 1945. And then the 34th Infantry Division, August 1945 to October 1945. So they were sent in to replace the 91st. And then the 88th came in after them, replacing them, because 91st and 34th Infantry Division had to go home. And so they were there for 2 years, from 1945 to 1947. And the reason why they had to leave in 1947 was because of this peace treaty called Treaty of Peace with Italy. It forced the 88th Infantry Division out of Trieste within 90 days of the signing of the treaty. And this treaty was a replica of Treaty of Versailles that was used on the German military and German country, making Italy to downgrade the military, pay reparations. They were prohibited to keep military arsenals within 12 miles of the borders, like France and Yugoslavia and Austria. No military presence were allowed within 12 to 30 miles of the border, meaning no installations, no bases, nothing was allowed. And then the relief supplies was brought in by the Allies. U.S. Navy and the British Navy had ships that brought in supplies into the Mediterranean to Trieste. They offloaded and unloaded onto train cars, from ships to train cars, and sent them up to Austria. They supplied food, clothing, etc. I conclude that Trieste was the very first battle of the Cold War. And the reason why is because it happened when World War II ended in Italy. It ended before the European continent, Berlin. Berlin fell 7 days after Italy had fell. to the Allies. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate your help, especially the professors and fellow students and friends and family. Thank you.
What country is Trieste in now?
Italy.
So it's part of Italy.
Yep.
Lost it and then gained it back?
Yep.
When did they get it back?
With the Treaty of Peace with Italy that was signed in 1947.
Gave it back to Italy.
Yep.
From Yugoslavia.
Yep.
But they couldn't put a military there.
They didn't have, the Italians didn't have the military, and they had to have border police officers come in and replace the 88th Infantry Division.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And that's what the video was going to show, and I kind of missed that. Sorry.
Cool. Good. Any other questions? Good.
So what was the state of affairs in Trieste after the 1947, after the treaty was signed? Was it unstable or was
It was unstable for 7 years after the treaty was signed. For 9 years, from 1945 to 1954, there was an unrest and dispute.
Good.
Have you been to visit it, Mike?
Unfortunately, no, I have not.
Is it on your list?
It is. Especially to go do research.
Yeah.